Yeah, good afternoon. I'm John Cowan from the Scottish Partnership Against Rural Crime. I work for Police Scotland, encouraging crime prevention in rural communities and rural businesses.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about where we are today?
Yeah, today we're at a modern dairy unit near Lockerbie, just to have a look at the systems that they use here, sort of the digital footprint on the farm, and talk about the threats that may come to the farm business in general and to the technology that we have here today.
John, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Scottish Partnership Against Rural Crime?
Yeah, it's been now on the go for 10 years. It's the anniversary this year. So Police Scotland work along with up to 20 partners, including NFU Scotland, NFU Mutual, a lot of the main Scottish Government, for example, just to make the community more resilient against crime. We look at the trends, we look at what's happening across the country, and then we sort of direct local policing resources towards those trends, and using our partners we get the message out to the community just to make them safer places to live and work.
And tell us a bit more about rural crime in the south of Scotland. What are the current threats? What are the current concerns that you might have?
Traditionally, rural crime you'd think of as likes of quad bike thefts, trailer thefts and vehicles, across to livestock worry and livestock attack, which is always quite prevalent and in particular worry at this time of year, leading up to lambing season. However, in line with sort of general society, crime is moving into the digital age, so your farm business is probably more likely to be the victim of a cyber crime than to have a quad bike stolen in modern days by use of phishing emails or cyber threats.
And are we seeing farms being specifically targeted by cyber criminals?
Certainly in this area we've had quite a few reports from financial loss due to cyber scams. For example, there was a farm that they received an email from, they believed to be from a supplier, a feed supplier, asking that the payment bank details be changed. Genuine looking email, the farmer took it at face value and made the payment to the new bank account. So unbeknown to him, it wasn't until 2 or 3 weeks later when the supplier just came to inquire why the payment hadn't come, that they realised the payment had been made to a false account. So scammers are getting ever more sophisticated. The emails are really genuine looking, and I just encourage people, if they were asked to change any bank details, provide details via a supplier that they know and trust, just to make that second phone call or second inquiry, just to make sure it was a genuine request. Because in the country, I think last year there was over 23 million suspicious emails reported and nearly 150,000 scams shut down. So it's not even an emerging trend, it's very much a trend in modern organised crime.
What makes farms attractive to cyber criminals as a target?
As a target, I suppose a farm business to them is no different to any other business. The phishing emails will come out, they're looking at probably addresses that they're getting from all sorts of different sources. Partly the reason the farm businesses are identified is if there's been a phishing attack against a company that a farm is supplying, that makes them maybe on the radar for the scammers. In 2015 there was 2 or 3 high-profile cases of cyber attack. Marks and Spencer's suffered a cyber attack in the spring of 2025, and that really affected a lot of their supply chain. So there was suppliers that were, there was fresh food stuck in warehouses, obviously there was clothes not getting to stores, and further down the chain, milk. Processors were asking farmers to dump milk because they couldn't process the milk because of such a backlog of produce. So, although that attack wasn't on the farm business itself, it had quite a significant impact on the industry as a whole.
And do you think that'll change the way that the supply chain defends itself and protects itself in the future?
I know that certainly the retailers and the processors are coming right on board with cyber security now. They realise the risk and they're becoming much more resilient. So potentially, if there's going to be a weak link in the food chain, it may be down at the producer level, where if the scammers get into farm businesses and they can then, use emails, use connections to processors and to retailers to get into that supply chain and disrupt that.
So, would you say there's an opportunity for farmers to be, as the kind of base level on that supply chain, to be proactive and to make sure they're doing their best to defend themselves against those threats and ensure they're very good at providing for the nation, our food and drink? And do you think there's an opportunity there to kind of be ahead of the curve and to make sure that they're doing their best?
I think it would be really useful, really vital that farm businesses take a look at their security, as I say, to protect the food chain in general, but also for their own day-to-day work. Data is a really big thing on farms nowadays, particularly dairy farms, whereas you're using technology to monitor cow health, you're using it to milk the cows. On this farm here today, the cows are wearing collars that actually monitor their health, and that produces data for the farmer to, as I say, adjust the management of the herd and look for breeding programs, that kind of thing. Technology in the robots that are here today, has never been more advanced than it is in the dairy industry. And if the network went down, for example, as a result of a malicious act by a criminal, the cows are not going to get milked. The health's going to be probably compromised, and obviously then there's financial problem for the business after that.
So it's not just about business continuity, it's not just about that, but it's also the value of the data and how that might be potentially useful to other people, or at least denying you access to it as a farmer might impact your operations day to day. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, in this modern age, we have people in our society that they're anti-farming, they're animal rights protesters potentially. I've seen processors targeted, trying to shut down plants and distribution centres. So potentially they could change their tack and target farms themselves. So I would certainly encourage everybody to look at their security in their business. For example, if you have obviously there'll be a computer probably in the offices in the dairy complex. So I would encourage them to sort of have password protection on them to limit the people that can actually access the system. If you've maybe 4 or 5 employees on the farm, passing the password to them so that they can access the system, isn't going to be too intrusive to their work stream, to what they're doing day to day. Potentially, if an employee leaves the farm under difficult circumstances, then that's a threat to the business if there's repercussions from that. So password protection and regular changing of the password would also be something that I would encourage. I know that the manufacturers, as I say, they're getting more savvy and more better at the digital protection, and they're introducing cyber security into their systems. Really, who produce the robots on this farm, they have a hub which includes a sort of cyber security system, and recognises the vulnerability of farms.
And do you think farmers should be, when they're buying new equipment for the farm, do you think they should be speaking to their suppliers to make sure that they meet the minimum requirements, or is that a conversation that they should be having?
It's certainly worth considering. Obviously, practicality, cost, all these things are very important, but to be competitive in a modern market, the manufacturers are looking at this, on the new basis, and to be competitive with their counterparts. Cyber security is something that they're now considering.
So you've talked a lot, John, about data and about the value of that data, or denying access to that data. Is there any specific technologies that you think are more at risk on a farm?
A trend that we have seen in the last few years is, I suppose, it's combining the digital and the practical hardware that criminals target. The GPS systems, the GPS receivers on tractors are something that has been quite attractive to criminals. Again, in this area we've seen 4 or 5 digital GPS receivers taken from tractors over one night. So potential that's £20,000–25,000 worth of hardware which a criminal has taken. They're not going to get that kind of value for it, but if they're getting maybe £1,000 a unit, it's still very worthwhile to them. And these receivers quite often end up in Eastern Europe and in the far sort of eastern Russia, because that technology is not available over there due to sanctions and due to the war. So, of course, the follow-up from that is if a GPS receiver is taken from a tractor, that affects the ability of the farmer to then go out and work the land. So practically and financially, it's a big cost to the farmer.
So that goes back to the disruption we talked about before, isn't it? It's changing that business as usual, and dairy farming is very fine margins, and any disruption to that is going to have an impact on the farm.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, John. Is there anything you want to finish on before we close out for today?
One other thing that is probably worth saying, that we're happy to come along to any business, any farm or any farm meeting and discuss the cyber security. Police Scotland have a sort of dedicated cyber security team who are up to date with all the latest trends, all the latest scams that are going about and affecting the businesses. So we're happy to discuss that and provide security advice if that's a benefit.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Matt.